When I was offered an internship in a different country, I was in disbelief at my incredible luck. It was a fantastic opportunity, and to make matters even better, I located a reasonably priced room in a quaint house. I had no idea that this would end up being the most terrifying experience of my life. When the moving day finally came, I eagerly carried my suitcases up the squeaky wooden staircase. My new house's door swung open, revealing a tall, lanky man with a broad grin plastered across his face. He held out a bony hand. "Hey there, I'm Jack. Welcome to your new home." I was glad to find a roommate who didn't mind temporarily sharing his space with me and Jack, who appeared to be amiable enough. I dismissed the house's creepy atmosphere because of its age, but it didn't take long before strange things started occurring. I heard whispers coming from Jack's room on the third night as I was trying to get some sleep in bed. I slipped across the hallway while leaning my ear against his door out of sheer curiosity. Though the words were inaudible, the tone chilled my spine. He seemed to be speaking as if through someone or something. The following morning, I spoke with Jack about the unsettling noises. As he searched for the appropriate words, his eyes darted agitatedly. After a long sigh, he finally said, "I need to tell you something, and you might think I'm crazy, but please hear me out. I'm possessed." Unable to understand what he had said, I started laughing. "Come on, Jack, that's a bit much. Possessed? Are you serious?" As Jack continued, his voice trembled and his face turned pale. He said, "I know it sounds crazy, but strange things have been happening to me. I am aware of an evil presence residing inside of me. I have no idea why or how it sometimes takes control." I dismissed his comments as a twisted joke, but a seed of uncertainty was planted in my mind nonetheless. Strange things happened over the course of the following few days. A lingering odor of decay filled the air, and the temperature in the house changed drastically. I remember seeing Jack in the distance one evening as I was reading a book while curled up on the couch. He was standing in the hallway, his body rigid and twisted at odd angles. He muttered incantations in a language I couldn't understand, and his voice echoed with a sinister tone and glowed with an otherworldly intensity. I stumbled backward and dropped my book as fear took hold of my heart. I managed to stammer Jack, "What the hell is going on with you?" The twisted grin was still clearly visible on his face as he slowly turned his head. "I tried to warn you, but you didn't take my word for it. The darkness inside of me is real, and it's ravenous." Thoughts of leaving rushed through my head, but I was unable to do so at the moment. I couldn't stop working on my internship because it needed me for at least one more week. In the hope that the morning would bring relief from this ongoing nightmare, I shut myself in my room that night and secured the door with a chair. Jack's actions became increasingly erratic as the days passed. He would frequently spend hours alone in his room, only to emerge with a worn-out appearance and the impression that he hadn't slept in days. His eyes were surrounded by dark circles, and his once vibrant personality had become a shadow of what it once was. We didn't talk much, and when we did, there was a tension in the air. I couldn't get rid of the feeling that Jack was just a vehicle for some evil that was still present in the house. However, I lacked any observable proof to back up such a claim. The house was strangely silent when I got home from work one evening. Jack would typically be engaged in some activity or pacing around, but right now, it seemed as though the walls themselves were holding their breath. I cautiously approached his room, my heart racing in fear. I found Jack sitting on the edge of his bed with his face gaunt and his eyes bloodshot after pushing open the door. He gave me a fearful, yet resignation-tinged look as he looked up at me. He whispered, his voice barely audible. "I can feel it. Being there. It wants to come out." My voice was tinged with worry as I questioned, "What presence? We need to find someone who can help you." He cut in, his voice becoming suddenly firm. "No, no one can help me right now. I have a thing inside of me that gets stronger every day. I feel him trying to take me over." I was unable to ignore the fear that washed over him and the desperation in his voice. It appeared as though he had turned into a vehicle for an unknown evil force. I was unable to continue to discount his claims despite how unsettling they were. The air became oppressively dense that night as I slept in my bed. My entire being screamed for me to run away and get away from this obscene presence. I gathered my belongings with trembling hands as my mind raced with images of the evil presence that lingered within the house's walls. I turned away as dawn broke. I was still burdened by the event, which served as a constant reminder of the atrocities I had seen. Despite the fact that I was unable to fully understand Jack's condition, I was aware that if I remained in that house any longer, I would ultimately perish. My curiosity about Jack's fate and whether he managed to escape the darkness that consumed him persists to this day. And I also think I'm never going to know how it ended. Maybe better for my own good.
I was eager and anticipatory as I moved into a new apartment. I couldn't wait to begin this new phase of my life in this charming little town. When I first met Emma, my new roommate, everything seemed to be in order. Emma, at first glance, appeared to be a typical young woman. She seemed uncomplicated and had a warm smile. However, as the days went by, I started to sense that she was off. Around the apartment, strange things began to happen. I could sometimes hear her whispering to herself when she thought I wasn't around. Also, if I listened very carefully, I heard scratching against the walls. I made an effort to dismiss it as a mere coincidence, but then things became more sinister. When I awoke one night, Emma was standing at the foot of my bed, her eyes emotionless and vacant. She whispered something to me in a language I couldn't understand, sending chills down my spine. She awoke from her trance-like state in response to my screams and claimed to have been sleepwalking. I kept having the impression that there was a serious problem. The erratic nature of Emma's behavior increased. She used to stay up all night, speaking incoherently to herself. Her concert, once welcoming smile, had been replaced by a AC sinister grin that gave me the chills. My roommate had been acting in an odd way, and I had confided in my friends about it, but they just laughed it off as paranoia. They hadn't personally witnessed the strange happenings I had. When I was near Emma, a chilling feeling engulfed me and a disturbing aura permeated the air. I could not shake off the feeling that something inexplicable was at work, as if an invisible something was present. The apartment door was slightly ajar when I got home one night. I carefully entered while my heart was racing. There was no sign of Emma, and the apartment was strangely silent. Panic rising inside of me, I looked everywhere. That's when I discovered a secret door in the cellar. I opened the door out of curiosity and was greeted by a small, dimly lit room. The atmosphere there was otherworldly and thick. My skin crawled as I entered and saw symbols etched onto the walls in what appeared to be dried blood. A voice then whispered in my ear, giving me a bone-chilling chill. "You weren't supposed to come here." I whirled around, but nobody was there. Behind me, the door slammed shut, locking me inside that terrifying space. Frozen in terror, I dared not make a single move. The mere thought of reopening the door and fleeing was far beyond my capacity for bravery. I stood there thinking, Emma's true nature is unknown to me, but I fear she is much more evil than I could have ever imagined. After a long hesitation, I opened the door again. Everything appeared to be normal as I re-entered the apartment, but I couldn't get the memory of the evil forces that had engulfed Emma out of my head. Weeks followed days, and life started to return to normal. However, I couldn't get rid of the unsettling impression that there was still a problem. The apartment had a bad odor, as if a ghost still roamed its halls. Emma had disappeared completely. There were no indications that she even existed. No communication, no activity on social media. It appeared as though she had never existed. Every effort I made to learn more about her past resulted in a dead end. Her past was a mystery, and the mystery surrounding her was only heightened by her disappearance. Our friends began to hear rumors that each of them had their own theories to add to the already hazy story. There were rumors that Emma left to save me because she felt things were going wrong. Others thought she had voluntarily entered the shadows, sinking down into their depths. I've never really figured out what happened to Emma or where she is now, and I still don't. I was unable to escape the chilling atmosphere that had once filled the apartment with optimism and excitement. When the world went silent, faint whispers reverberated through the rooms and shadows flickered in the corner of my vision. I left that apartment in the hopes that a change of scenery would bring comfort and solutions. But the mysteries remain unsolved, and I continued to wonder about Emma's true character. Sometimes, in the dead of night, when everything is enveloped in darkness, I ponder whether Emma's disappearance was merely a coincidence, or whether she was actually a conduit for something much more evil. I get a shiver in those situations because I am reminded that some mysteries are meant to be kept secret, and some frights are doomed to remain unsolved. The incident with Emma and the paranormal activities that took place in that apartment still trouble me today.
When I came across this listing for a cheap apartment, I couldn't believe my good fortune. A dream came true, it seemed to be. My new roommate, let's call him Greg, was a bit of an oddball, and that was the catch. But hey, I thought, everyone's got their quirks, right? Little did I know that my choice to live with him would become a nightmare come true. I couldn't help but notice the strange vibe as soon as I walked into the apartment. Greg did not have such good taste in decorating. There were porcelain dolls strewn about, their cold eyes watching my every move, and there were strange clown paintings on the walls. No doubt, it wasn't my style, but I convinced myself that I could adjust. When I found the locked basement, things started to get gloomy. From the beginning, Greg made it abundantly clear that it was forbidden. He insisted that it was only his personal storage area, but the way he guarded it made me uneasy. Every day, my curiosity bit at me, but I ignored it in favor of trying to see the good things about my new home. I began to see a pattern as the days progressed into weeks. At strange hours of the night, Greg would vanish into the basement. I would be startled out of sleep by the sound of the floorboards above me creaking, followed by the faint sound of footsteps coming down the stairs. Every time, a rush of fear and curiosity would run through my body. The stench was the deciding factor. With each passing day, the scent became more intense than in the beginning, which was barely perceptible at first. It almost made the apartment unbearable as it seeped into every crevice. It became impossible for me to ignore. I made up my mind to check out the forbidden basement because I was determined to solve this mystery. One late night, when I was sure Greg was asleep, I crept downstairs while firmly gripping a flashlight in my shaking hand. The basement door loomed in front of me, its old, rusted lock concealing its contents. The odor propelled me forward after a brief moment of hesitation, during which my heart was thumping in my ears. The lock gave way. The door creaked open with a quick kick, and a staircase leading into the shadows was revealed. I froze in fear when my flashlight's beam cut through the pitch, blackness, and revealed what it was. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Blood and body parts scattered over the room. I took a step back, trying to hold back a scream as the disgusting stench filled the air. It was like a nightmare come to life. The basement turned out to be a horrifying place of human remains. When I realized the true nature of my ruin, panic engulfed me completely. In an effort to process the implications of what I had learned, my mind raced. What was going on? Who were these people? How long had Greg been keeping this horrible secret? And most importantly, would I be his next victim? I had to get the hell out of there. I turned around, and there he was, Greg. That creepy grin plastered across his face as he taunted, "You just couldn't resist, huh?" Now look at what you've gotten yourself into. Before I knew it, he was right in front of me, grabbing hold of me. I fought with all my might, desperate to stay alive. There was no way I was going to be next. I struggled mightily to escape Greg's grasp. With the fear of what I had seen still fresh in my mind, adrenaline propelled me out of the apartment as I dashed out. I fled for my life, being driven forward by the horrors I had discovered. Shaking and gasping for air, I went to a nearby convenience store for safety. I described the gruesome finds in Greg's basement while frantically calling the police. As I began to tell my terrifying story, their expressions changed from skepticism to concern. But by the time they went to look into it, it was too late. Any indication of Greg's nefarious actions had been hidden because he had covered his tracks. The macabre evidence that had haunted my nightmares had been removed from the basement, leaving it empty. The police questioned me, and you could see the doubt in their eyes. They were unable to locate any concrete evidence to back up my claims, and I started to have doubts of my own. I made the difficult choice to return to living with my parents after becoming broken and terrified. The comfort of their home's security and familiarity gave me some relief, but I could never get rid of the worry that Greg would come looking for me. Knowing that he might still be present and waiting for an opportunity to take back control of me made me constantly look over my shoulder, leaving me feeling tense. Greg's footsteps kept me up at night, keeping me from falling asleep. I became anxious at every unexpected noise, such as a floorboard creaking. I had the unshakable impression that he was keeping watch, biding his time, and waiting for the ideal opportunity to strike. My fear only grew as a result of the police's shock. The weight of his secrets pressed down upon me, suffocating my attempts to move on. How could I prove what I had seen? How could I convince them that the person I had once called my roommate was a deranged monster? I tried to find some measure of peace amidst the chaos that had taken over my life, so I sought therapy. But not even the skilled experts were able to calm my persistent fear. My perception of safety and trust had been permanently altered by the atrocities I had witnessed, which left an irreparable mark on my sanity. Now I'm constantly in fear, looking over my shoulder and wondering if today will be the day Greg shows up again. The nightmare he had produced still hangs over me like a shadow that won't go away.